Hi, my name is Mark Wagner, and I am the founder of Future 500 ID Camps, and I'm also the president of ACA, which stands for Athlete College Advisors. And they are a company that works with entire soccer clubs and their families on navigating the college recruiting search and selection process. And so both of our companies will be working with all of you via 5 video seminars on understanding a lot of the important aspects of the recruiting process, which sadly we understand has become even more confusing because of COVID-19. And so please know that as you go through these 5 seminars that we would normally be doing actually live at our camps. The negative is obviously we're not able to do them live. The positive though is that we are able to do these via video. And as a result of that, you can refer back to these as you need to, as you have additional questions. And so we hope that you find these videos helpful. And we also want you to know that we have really tried to be careful to think through COVID-19 related recruiting issues as well, and to include those in each one of these videos. So we hope you enjoy our videos, and we hope that your child enjoys camp. Thanks. So let's hop right into our first recruiting seminar on determining college fit. And it's the first seminar intentionally because we think it is the key to unlocking everything about successful college recruiting. So if there is a video that we would encourage you to pay the most attention to, it is this one by far. So let's get into it. So determining college fit. As I've indicated, it's what we believe is probably the most important thing that you're going to need to determine. And what we find, unfortunately, in working with so many different clubs and families, is that so many families really fail to determine college fit early enough in the process. And unfortunately, a lot of times it results in pretty negative results. So we think there's reasons why so many families don't engage fit and think it through early enough. And unfortunately, a big part of that, and it's why we're bringing it up, is a lot of recruiting services talk about this idea of mass recruiting or more is better. Talk to as many colleges as you possibly can talk to, and that's going to increase your chances of a good result. And we think that is very much strategically the wrong way to go. Unfortunately, it is what most recruiting services are telling people, and therefore the strategy that a lot of families employ. So if you don't believe that, let me just go through real quick, and I'm actually going to read this one. You can read along. I want to go through what is an article, or part of an article, from what is the largest student athlete recruiting company in the United States. And it comes from this article titled Preparing for the Recruiting Process. And so pay attention, especially to the red area. So it says, be open. When it comes to the recruiting process, the more, the better. And that's it. That's huge. We couldn't disagree with it, unfortunately, more than that. More is not necessarily better. The more schools you consider, the more coaches you contact, and the more effort you put into it will all help generate better results. In order to have success in getting recruited, you need to leave your options open. If you are too specific in your school preferences, you will have fewer options to research, and you may not find the best fit for you. While it is a great idea to know that what you want in your school, you also have to make sure that you are not limiting yourself on possible opportunities. For example, if you know that you want to major in accounting, you should definitely research all schools with that subject. But make sure to explore schools in all division levels and in several regions of the country. You never know what school you may find if you don't expand your horizons. So we couldn't disagree with this more. And I think as we go through this seminar, I think you'll understand why. Some statistics I'm going to show you here in a moment will start to point to that hopefully a little bit more clearly. There's a much better way. But before we even hop into some of that, just ask a couple of simple questions. Several regions of the country. Why would a family whose child knows that they're the most comfortable going to a college in northeastern United States entertain colleges on the West Coast? It's not logical. And the problem is, as you'll see, you can only reach out to and engage in a personal and meaningful way with so many colleges. So I'll stop there for the moment and I'll just keep moving us along. Here's some really important statistics that we hope really will, in some respects, sober families. They are sobering statistics. People are very surprised usually when they hear them. And so the 4-year college graduation rate is, believe it or not, it's only 40% of people graduate in 4 years. It's so poor that most governing bodies or oversight agencies typically look at a 6-year graduation rate instead. And that one is actually only 60%. The national retention rate, freshman to sophomore year national retention rate, is 61%. That means that 39% leave their college after sometime during their freshman year or after their freshman year. And this is a very conservative number. Number 4, 60,000 plus for each additional year when you factor the cost of both attendance at the university and lost income in what would be, the 5th year, 6th year, whatever it would be, when could be working. And so as you do the math on that, obviously 60,000 is a very conservative number when you put those two things together. And so we really want families to not be in those statistics. And we know that families don't want to be in those statistics. And so the question becomes, is there a better approach to help ensure a better result? And so we think that the answer to that is to really hone in on this idea of determining the right fit. And in a little bit, we're going to talk about 10 fit factors that we think everyone should be really taking a good hard look at. But let me go through these two different approaches quickly for a moment. There's two different approaches that we think people take. We narrow them down, consolidate them into really two concepts. And one of them is a reactive recruiting process, which considers sport first and foremost, and largely waits to see what colleges contact you before you really engage with colleges or really actively engage in the whole college search and selection process. And then the second one, and this is the method that we recommend by far the most, is the idea of a proactive recruiting approach. And that proactive recruiting approach considers non-athletic factors first. And after that, it builds an initial list of colleges based on these non-athletic factors and starts to really try to think through even an initial list of potential interested colleges before really engaging on the athletic side. So sorry about that. Let me go through the fit factors that we think families really need to consider. And this gets at the heart of what fit is. It's less complicated than what people sometimes maybe think it is, if you can break it down into its various components. And so these 10 different factors for us comprise fit and what might be a best fit school for a particular student athlete. And so we have an order for these. And as you'll notice, 7 of the fit factors in white are non-athletic. And those are the first 7. And then the next 3 factors, and only 3 factors, are athletic. And so as you look at these, major of interest, academic quality of institution, geography, the distance from home, city or rural, private or public institution, large college or small college, cost of the institution, obviously an important thing these days, especially with the price of college increasing so much in the last decade. And then campus visit and the importance of doing that. We'll talk about that a little more later. Then after you've worked through some of those, then looking at NCAA Division 1, 2, and 3, quality of the program within the division, and even style of play, which in soccer obviously really sometimes can matter for a student athlete's success. So unfortunately and sadly, what we often find is that point number 8, NCAA Division 1, 2, or 3, and specifically, can I play NCAA Division 1, is what occupies so much of a family and student athlete's time, just thinking about that one issue. We actually think the first 7 ought to come first. And again, as we continue to move through, we will explain more about why we think that is true. So let's start getting maybe a little bit more practical as we look at these 10 fit factors and why we think it's so important to consider the first 7 even before then getting into the athletic stuff. And so final caveat is obviously sometimes there's going to be an overlap of looking at 8, 9, and 10 as you're looking at 1 through 7. That's okay. But as much as possible, we really like people to try to look at the first 7 as much as possible earlier on, because it's not the natural bent for a lot of families. Not all families, but for a lot of families. So, my apologies, folks. Not sure why that's happening. The fit, and why do we think that this idea of fit can really help you in your college recruiting process? And the reasons are, I'll give you 3 of them here. College coaches want a much more personalized approach. They're tired of mass recruiting and getting all these really kind of spammy mass recruiting emails. We'll talk about that more as we move along here. And they want a more personalized approach. And the best way for student athletes to be able to give a more personalized approach is to narrow down your preferences, your college search list based on fit first. And number 3, student athletes that can clearly communicate why a college coach might be a good fit are going to greatly increase their chances of receiving serious, sustained attention from a college coach. So, I'm going to give you a very practical example of why. So, one of the most important things, especially for initial recruiting, that first contact, is email. And a student athlete that hasn't narrowed down based on those fit factors first is going to have to when they send emails, they're going to be more general in nature. And this is the 90% of emails that college coaches get are like this. And I guess I probably haven't said it before. A college head coach for 25 years. So I've seen this time and time again. And again, through our Future 500 company, we employ about 250 college coaches every year. And so we're talking with coaches all the time about this stuff. So I'd say about 90% of them end up being what you're seeing here. So subject line, interest in your college. Note the word your. Dear coach, my name is Sarah Smith, and I'm a 2023 grad from Westchester, Pennsylvania. I play for Penn Fusion and attend Bayard Rustin High School. I played soccer since I was 5 years old, and I've always dreamed of playing soccer in college. I'm reaching out to let you, not the coach's name, you, know of my interest in your, not the program's name, your program. Starting attacking midfielder for my Penn Fusion team. I'm quick, technical, good passer, yada, yada. I really believe that I could help contribute to your, once again, the word your, success on the field. I've attached my student athlete resume, this email, and I have filled out your recruiting questionnaire. What are the next steps I need to take in order to be considered by your coaching staff? Your coaching staff. Again, it's intentionally that this example is not a horribly written email. That's the point. So most families turn around and look at things like this and think, hey, that's pretty solid. The problem with it is it says nothing to the coach about the coach's own program or why the student athlete might specifically be interested in their program. And so literally college coaches get thousands of these emails every single year. And so they can't spend time trying to determine if general emails like this are legitimate. And so a lot of the times that coaches don't do that much with these. What they may do oftentimes is they'll spam, what we would call spam you back. So coaches are tired of getting spammed by thousands of general emails. So what they'll do is they will email you back. They'll put it into what we would call their own CRM, that they can then turn around and mass email thousands of kids at the same time. And they'll invite you to their ID clinic, camp, or whatever it is. There's nothing wrong with that per se at all. We're not knocking college coaches for doing that. Again, they're tired of getting spammed. What they're doing, it's a way for college coaches to then turn around and say, okay, are you interested or you're really not interested? Because I have no idea from that email whether or not you are. So if you're interested, come to our camp, come to our ID clinic. The problem with that is if you now have all kinds of colleges that you've emailed and many of them or most of them are emailing you back, how do you even know which ones to go to? And you really may think that they're recruiting you, but they're not. And it's a critical distinction. So it creates a considerable amount of problems for families trying to really kind of narrow down or figure out who's legitimately interested and who is not. Okay, so let's look at the next email, and pardon us for having a little bit of fun. Everyone knows Zlatan Ibrahimovic, pretty talented forward, obviously at the pro level. We thought we'd put him in here and talk about what we would consider to be a much more ideal email and one that's going to stand out to college coaches. So my name is Zlatan Ibrahimovic, and I am a 2023 forward from LA, California. I play for the LA Galaxy and attend LA Public School. I'm reaching out to let you know of my interest in ACA University. So it mentions the college and your program. It's okay to say your some, as long as there's things in there that make it clear to the coach that you've done your homework. Congratulations on watching the NCAA tournament again. So that's more research needed. And for winning the Atlantic Conference, more research needed for the second straight year. I watched a few of your games last season via live stream, more research needed. And I really liked the system and style of play. I have family on the West Coast. That's a good trigger for a college coach to know that you might be serious about coming to them geographically. So ACA's location really appeals to me. Also, I enjoy math and science and would love to know more about your highly ranked engineering program. Once again, specificity, they have it. That's an important marker for them. I am a starter for the LA Galaxy team. I scored 5 goals, yada, yada. I really believe that I could help contribute to ACA's success on the field. Attach my student athlete resume, blah, blah, blah. So what do we say about this email? What we say about this email is the only way a person could have written this email is to have an idea of some of those fit parameters. So think about what some of those might be. It mentions geography. It mentions major. It mentions from the red 8 through 9 style of play. So it mentions a number of the fit parameters. And again, it's very specific to this college. Now, what does that say to a college coach? What it says to a college coach is that the student athlete has done their homework and has probably narrowed down. And the reason why I say it's probably narrowed down is because the only way that you can give that kind of specificity is if you have narrowed down your list. In other words, you can't send that kind of an email to 100 different colleges. But the previous email I showed you, you could send that out to 200, 300, 400 colleges if you wanted to, okay? And so this one talks about the college coaches program, again, in specific detail. That is going to greatly increase your chance of a coach turning around and saying, we will reach out because this person is legitimately interested and is probably at least somewhat narrowed down to us and whatever it is, 10 or 20 other schools. Because again, you just can't do this kind of stuff with 100 schools. So coaches have what we would call very, very good sniffers, and they can sniff out all the general bulk type emails, and they can sniff out very quickly the ones that really seem to be much more legitimate, and they only have so much time to invest in this when they're getting thousands of these every year. So not trying to overly belabor this. Hopefully that is helpful to you. Again, the only way that we think that you can really do this effectively is if you've already figured out some of your, fit parameters and thought those through some. So moving on. My apologies again on our technology. Finding fit and practical guidance in these unusual times. And what I mean by these unusual times is this, and this is not meant to try to scare anyone, but college coaching is difficult. College recruiting is difficult. And what many colleges have responded with now, because of COVID-19, many colleges have furloughed a lot of their assistant coaches. Some of that is temporary, and at some point they'll come back. Some of it could be permanent. Colleges have been hurt very badly financially by this. And so the reason why all that matters is for a lot of colleges, they're going to have less staffing that's available to help filter through all of the student athletes that are trying to reach out to them. So they're going to have the same amount of contact, but less people to help process all of it. Therefore, you have to get your strategy right. And again, that email example that I referred to is a very practical example of getting the strategy right. So some practical guidance. Number one, thoroughly answer as many of the 10 fit factors as you can. It's okay if you can't answer all of them. Still try to answer as many of them as you can. Take an online personality test. Really, why not? Everyone's got more time right now. There is a website called Truity, TRUITY.com, and there is a program that we really like called the Type Finder for Career Planning. The Type Finder for Career Planning. It takes 10 to 15 minutes to take that survey. There's no right or wrong answers. Again, it's relatively quick. And there's a free version of that actually gives a fair amount of good, helpful information. Or if you really want in-depth detail information, you can pay for it. But generally speaking, I really think that most of the info on that, you just don't really need to pay for it. But you'll find that it's very helpful towards answering a couple of the 10 fit factor questions. So again, that's Truity.com, and it's the Type Finder. Just look Truity.com and look for Type Finder. Next one, write down a list of 10 to 20 college, nothing exact, just start. And again, 10 to 20, why do we have that range? Really depends on where you are. Are you a freshman, sophomore, junior, or going into your senior year? Like, where are you in that whole process? The younger you are, the bigger the list. The older you are, probably obviously the more narrow the list becomes. You can add colleges to that list at any time. You can drop colleges off that list at any time. Just because things might continue to change for you on a list for quite some time is not a reason to not make an initial list. And so we highly encourage you to do that. Our campus is closed. Most of them still at the moment are. Do a virtual tour instead. Colleges now increasingly are adding really good virtual tours. Do that. And then when the colleges open up, hopefully many of them will in the fall, what we encourage you to do is just go to a couple of local colleges in your area. A big college, a small college, and do a campus tour. Maybe meet with your admissions folks, even if you have zero interest in that college, and just being on and visiting a number of college campuses of, maybe maybe one of them's rural, maybe one of them's in the city, but just ones that are around you will help to give a better feel for what just feels right. And part of it is a feel thing, and physically stepping on and visiting campuses can do a whole lot of good that way. And then finally, watch at least 15 minutes of a competitive match from each college you have significant interest in. So it's really going to be more for people moving into their junior or senior year. You're going to want to start to do that too. Obviously, especially I think in soccer, style of play really matters depending on the type of player that you are, if you're going to be successful. 2 levels of program. They could be, both could be top 20 programs in the country. But one of them you may thrive at from a soccer perspective because of their style of play, and another one you may not. And it's not because one's better or worse, it's because their style of play is different. So it's really good to be able to turn around and look at some video. Everyone has it now. It's not going to be hard to look at their social media. You'll be able to find it and watch some film of those teams. And then obviously, as you're doing that, it also gives you a good touch point to email coaches, text coaches, talk with them on the phone. We'll cover more of that in one of our other videos that we'll be doing on college coach communication. So wrapping up, what we've tried to do, since we're not able to do this live, we're typically getting a lot of questions at our events, and we try to answer every one of them. So we've just written a couple of the common questions that we get when we're talking about this topic. So the first common question that we get is, what do we do if our child doesn't seem to be able to figure out FIT right now? So at the risk of me having these technology challenges, I'm going to try and scroll back to our numbers and look at these for a moment. So I hit on this a little bit earlier, but what I literally would say is to gently force your child to just think through some of this stuff. Set aside some time, and again, if you do the Truity.com test, it's going to help the survey. It's going to help with ideas on majors of interest, and it might just be a broad range. Maybe it's 5 different potential majors. Maybe it's 8, but I think most people can at least maybe start with something. For some crazy reason you can't, fair enough. Move on to number 2, academic quality of institution, based on a student athlete's GPA, PSAT, SAT, ACT, whatever, is going to start to give an idea of what kind of academic quality your student athlete might be able to qualify for. And then the second part of that is, well, what are you actually interested in? Does that matter? You care about that much, or do you not? And I could talk about that for quite a while. I won't right now. Geography, just talking that one through. Does your student athlete want to stay closer to home, go further away from home? Interestingly enough, it's a very high percentage, over 60%, that go within a 4 to 6 hour range of their home. So if your son or daughter is turning around and saying, yeah, we think we'd kind of like to stay regionally closer, know that that is not unusual at all. Private or public? Can you answer that one? And then again, the rest of them, I won't go through all of them too much more here, but how many of these can you actually answer? Going through all the rest of it, you're gonna be able to, if you really work at it, answer some of those questions. So I'm gonna go back to the commonly asked questions, if I can get to it. And number 2, what is wrong with waiting to hear from college coaches first, so we know what level our child can play at first? I could, again, talk about this one for 45 minutes. What I would turn around and say ultimately is the statistics that I pointed out at the beginning: 4-year graduation rate of only 40%, 6-year of only 60%, 39% of people transferring at some point during or at the end of their freshman year. Their reasons that those statistics are what they are. And we understand the dream of wanting to play Division I. We also know that as a percentage, it's very, very difficult. And so what we encourage people to think about is obviously to encourage a student athlete to pursue their dreams, but to make sure that they have broad-based plans, even as they're hoping maybe for that Division I opportunity. And in that way, you cover your bases. If the Division I works out, awesome. And if it doesn't, then those other options are all still available. I think a lot of times with people that wait and just kind of think about the Division I thing, many times it ends up being reflected in the fact that maybe coaches are starting to reach out to them from Division III, from Division II, and the student athlete isn't very proactive, or I should say prompt, in responding back to those people, because they're just not that interested because they want Division I. Well, at some point in time, if Division I doesn't work out, a lot of times those coaches have already moved on to other student athletes that they're recruiting, and it's too late. And then another part of it that really becomes important, especially for small selective private liberal arts colleges, many times those coaches even in junior year will really want to be, and when I say small private liberal arts, a lot of times those are Division III institutions. A lot of times those coaches will be really trying to engage in the student athlete's junior year, and gauging seriousness of interest. They're more advanced in the time frames for recruiting, and if student athletes aren't responsive, they again, coaches just very well may move on. And by the time you get to the summer of going into senior year, many highly selective private liberal arts may already want you to be application complete, to have everything in, grades, transcripts, board scores, everything, so that they can then turn around and take that to their institution and really gauge what your odds are of being able to be admitted to the school, and then possibly even come back to you then and say, we're going to want you to go early decision, because at many colleges, if you go early decision, you have a better chance of being admitted. And so once again, if you're holding out for the Division I, maybe it's a pipe dream, maybe it's not, but if you're holding out and not considering the other options, you may run out of time and lose out on some really good opportunities. So that's the three main ones that we get. We have a lot of information, additional information, on the educational side at both future500idcamp.com and at athletecollegeadvisors.com, and a lot of our social media. So feel free to take a look at either one of those as well. We will dig into certain aspects of some of what I talked about further in videos 2 through 5. And you're also going to hear some recurring themes when we go through our college coach interviews and when we go through our student athlete interviews and again, two of our additional videos from this series. So hope you find this helpful, and we look forward to talking with you again in video number 2. Thanks.